Hey everybody, this is Scott with GuitarAndBass.com. Thanks for checking out this video. Today I wanted to talk about scales, and specifically trying to demystify the learning of scales and how to actually apply them while we're playing. So in my experience, I have bookshelves full of scale books, and they've been useful to learn about scales, but I've always found it difficult to take something from the, a memorized scale and maybe a new one and apply it to my playing. So if that's a situation that you've been in, I want to share with you something that I use with my students to simplify the whole idea of improvisation and using scales. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and I'm going to divide this video into two parts, a first and a second part. The first part, we're going to talk about what I call a bass scale, B-A-S-E scale. Not for bass guitar, but just the home bass scale that we'll use. And then we're going to create a variation off of that. So we'll call it variation 1, and then a second variation and a third variation. But we're always relating it to the bass scale, so that when we're improvising, in the moment, jamming, we are able to still intuitively play and create, but have access to some kind of inflections into other areas without having to stop and think, oh, let me play the Dorian mode here or the minor scale here. It'll be more natural and intuitive. At least that's my hope for you. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about or show you the bass scale, which you may or may not have played before under another name, which I shall not mention, but it's pretty simple. We're going to start on the 4th string, 5th fret. I'll play it through once and then go a little slower so you can see all the fingerings and the notes. Okay, so I'm going to start on string 4, fret 5 with my first finger, and then 3rd finger. String 3 is also finger 1 and 3. String 2 is finger 1 and 4. And string 1 is the same. So again, if you've had some experience with scale playing, you'll recognize what that scale is, although I'm calling it the bass scale. If it's brand new to you, just maybe slow the video down or stop it and make sure you got that under your fingers. Okay, now we're going to use a simple chord progression and then practice that bass scale over top of it. I'm going to use an A minor 7 and a D7. And I'm going to loop it and just demonstrate how to use the bass scale with these two chords. I'll let the loop run at the end of my demonstration so you have a little time that you can practice and do some improvising over the backing track. So when you see me stop, I'll just wait a little while and let you have some backing track time. Okay, let's loop this backing track very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to just play the bass scale over top. So if you've got your bass scale down, just a little bit on some phrasing ideas, some things that you can do with the scale. We'll get into some of that in a later video. But one thing you can do after you have the bass scale down is to think of creating little 3 or 4 note melodic riffs and then just repeating them. So you could, for example, and so that way I'm actually creating some phrasing out of the scale. Very simple, 3 note idea, and then just repeat it and maybe change it up a little bit on the repeat. Alright, so that's our bass scale. That scale can be used for everything. So it can be used, of course, in blues. It can be used in any rock song, any kind of more folky rock song. So that's why I call it the bass scale. It will fit with everything. Okay? So basically anything that is in the key of C and uses the following chords: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, and A minor. Those are all the C key of C chords. Any song that uses those chords, that home bass scale will work. Anything that you're playing in A blues, like A7 to D7 to E7, the A 12-bar blues, your home bass scale will work for all of those things. So it's a fail-safe. If you're not sure what to play, you always have your home bass. Okay, so building off the home bass, we're going to go into variation 1. And what we're going to do is add 3 notes to our home bass. Just 3. So let's go through and see which notes those are. I'm going to start here. And then right here is our first additional note. Okay, so it's 1 down. It's on fret 4, string 3. It's 1 down from our home bass note. Okay, so. Here's our second additional note. Right, it's the second finger note. And then our last additional note for variation 1, third finger on the first string. Okay, so this is, we're going to call this variation 1. So this scale, I'm going to do an A minor to a D minor. So this scale will really work well if you have some minor chords in your progression, or if you're playing any of those chords that we just talked about in the key of C, the variation 1, by adding those 3 extra notes. Alright, let's record our backing track, and I'll do the same thing. I'll let it run a little bit so you have some time to try it out yourself. Alright, so that scale gives you 3 more tones to be expressive with, and it works again with the key of C. So any of those chords we talked about before, the C, the D minor, the E minor, the F, the G, the A minor, any song that uses from those chords, you can add this variation 1 and make your solo sound a little bit more melodic. The bass scale is very rocky, it's bluesy, and that's great too. But if you want to get a little more melodic, then you just flip in the variation 1. So I want to show you now kind of the fun of thinking of bass plus variation and not thinking of like 2 separate scales. I'm going to use that same progression, and I'm going to go back and forth between bass scale and variation 1, and I think you'll hear they're very different mood shifts, and you can use that when you're being creative in your improv. So let's give that a try. Okay, so it gives you a lot of freedom to be creative in the moment. You know, I want a little bit more pathos, a little bit of more of an emotional moment. I'll use my variation 1, adding those 3 tones. Back to something more raw emotion or bluesy sound, kind of reckless sound, I'll stick with my bass scale. So in that way, while you're jamming, as you're being inspired in the moment, you can just kind of shift into these different gestures without too much of this. You know, not too much of like, now I've done a scale X, now I'm going to do scale Y. It's more intuitive, and you can be more creative that way. So before we wrap up this first part, just a couple suggestions for your own backing tracks or practicing this. So of course you can always use backing tracks, and there's plenty of them online. So for the bass scale, remember we said anything in A blues the bass scale will work. Also for anything in the key of C, so a backing track that has a C, a D minor, an E minor, an F, a G, or an A minor, any of those backing tracks, you'll be able to use the bass scale, and then you'll also be able to practice your variation 1. But also you can record your own backing tracks, and I think that's really important. If you have a looper pedal, or maybe you might want to think about getting one, they're great tools. But if you don't, you can just use your phone. Record the backing track for a minute or 2. It's really good rhythm guitar practice as well, for you to do that part and then do your improvs over top. Alright, well I hope you check out the next part of the video, and thanks for watching this one, and I look forward to seeing you next time.